It's 6:06. It's O'Connor and Company on this Friday morning as we launch you into your weekend. Thanks for letting us into your routine. And hopefully this program will be anything but routine. Although I should alert everyone, from this point forward, Patrice Onwuka and I will be using our pseudonyms here on the show. So
Well, I'm not going to release mine because then what's the point?
Oh, you're not going to let people know what your pseudonym is?
No, I'll come up with a fake one.
You're
A
going to
fake
come up with a
pseudonym.
fake
A
name.
fake name, exactly.
It's fantastic. Who doesn't have a fake name? All right, we'll talk about that a little later in the program, especially when conducting official business on behalf of the U.S. government. At 7:05, Jacqueline Woodbridge will join us from Transurban. They've partnered with VDOT on the brand new 95 Express Lanes. 7:35, Newt Gingrich. It's totally a fake name. 8:05, Rob O'Donnell. That's
Not
a
a fake
name. There's no
No
way
way.
that's real. And then at 8:35, Byron York. Total fake
It could go
name.
either way. That could
No,
go
that's
either
a
way.
fake name. Byron York. Come on. I'm Sterling Gray alongside. You don't have your name yet?
Charisse. Oh, what was it? Charisse
Otrice
Homestead.
Ponwuka. There. Got it.
Charisse Homestead. We'll go with that one.
888-630-9625. Do you think Trump should sign a loyalty pledge? Do you think Ronna McDaniel should ban him from the if Donald Trump shows up in Milwaukee on Wednesday to debate and he has not signed this so-called loyalty pledge, do you think Ronna McDaniel should keep him off the stage? 888-630 WMAL. Listen, here's what the pledge says, by the way.
Okay.
I state your name. Oh no, excuse me. This is the pledge. No, so I'm getting ahead of myself. If this were 2016,
Yeah.
I would say absolutely he should sign the pledge. Every Republican should sign the pledge. I would say that's the whole point of party politics. Party politics is you fight it out, you figure out who's going to be your leader, and then you rally behind that leader because you're part of the party, and the whole point is you want the best person to defeat the opponent, right? So, for instance, in Maryland, when Larry Hogan's chosen successor did not win the nomination,
Yeah.
all Republicans should have rallied around Dan Cox, the nominee. But no, Larry Hogan took his ball and ran with it. He went crying. He went elsewhere. He said, "Oh, and I can't support him. There's no way he's going to win. We're dead." And well, look what happened, right? The Democrat won, Wesley Moore.
Yeah.
He may have won already, but the whole point is party unity is important. Democrats are really good at that. Republicans are not. So if you remember right back in 2016, everyone was screaming that Trump had to support the nominee. Trump had to support the nominee. We got to get him to sign a pledge. Reince Priebus, chairman of the RNC, he set up this pledge, and here's what it said back in 2016. I blank affirm that if I do not win the 2016 Republican nomination for president, I'll endorse the 2016 Republican presidential nominee, regardless of who it is, and I will not seek or accept the nomination for president of any other party. Now, the real point of that pledge, Patrice, back then, they might have have rephrased it and said, I, Donald Trump, promise not to do a Ross Perot. Because that was the fear. Jeb and Carly and Kasich, they were all terrified that when they won, because of course they'd win, they're the establishment figures, that Trump would have a tantrum and he would go third party and it would ruin everyone's chances. So they got Trump to sign the pledge. And look what happened. He won the nomination, and what did Jeb do? Jeb refused to support him. What did Carly? Carly refused to support him. John Kasich went so far off the ledge that by the time we got to 2020, he was literally giving a speech at the Democrat convention
Yeah.
supporting Joe Biden. So there's all your party loyalty for you.
Well,
So I'm sorry, it's not 2016 anymore. These pledges are obviously meaningless. The party will not enforce them at all because they didn't back when everybody abandoned Trump when he won the nomination fair and square. It's insulting. It's hypocritical. And Ronna McDaniel should have never put herself in this position because now what's she going to do if he does show up?
I would like to see him show up, though, Larry.
I would, too. I want him to
would love
debate.
it. I mean, I read your piece, great piece over at Town Hall, and the point you make is if he shows up, then the cameras are obviously just going to drain the building and run out to capture him standing there, whether he goes in or not.
That's
and
right.
the rest of the candidates are left with nobody to watch it or care what they have to say.
That is a hilarious idea. He should stand in the parking lot if they don't let him debate because of the loyalty pledge. And that sideshow that Ronna McDaniel has
Yeah.
created will actually draw more attention from the Republican candidates.
Oh, of course.
What
Do you
a
know how many
stupid
people
idea.
would swarm that place? All
Of
of the Trump
course.
supporters with their flags like caravans. So I just pulled up the pledge for the current pledge right now, signed by Governor Ron DeSantis, and it pretty much says, I agree that I'm going to be part of these Republican National Committee sponsored debates. I'm not going to participate in any others, and if I do, then I'm not going to be eligible to participate in any future RNC debates. And then the other caveat, which is really important, additionally, I affirm that if I do not win the 2024 Republican nomination for president, I will honor the will of the primary voters and support the nominee in order to save our country and beat Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Now here, I get this pledge is meaningless. I'm going to just defend the idea, though, of everyone rallying behind the person who the primary voters want.
Yeah.
Because what unfortunately, as you laid out, what we ended up having is in 2016 was the birth of the Never Trump movement.
Yep.
So you got the people, the Republicans, who mindlessly said, "Oh, I'm going to vote for Biden because he's the nice guy. He represents the ruling elite class coming back into power, and things are going to be normal again, and no bad tweets." And look where we are.
Yep,
So I do.
100%.
I understand these pledges are ridiculous, but I do think it is important that every Republican, if they want to be president as a Republican and lead the party, that they commit to making sure that whoever is at the top of the ticket, they support them and not undermine them, because they are undermining our country and putting Joe Biden back in office.
100%. And in theory and principle, I agree with you, except I have a fresh memory of what happened in 2016 and Chris Christie has even said, because Christie hasn't signed it either.
He
said, if I sign it, it won't mean anything. So what's the point here? Radu and Potomac. Radu and I usually agree on things here on O'Connor, guys. So Radu, what do you think?
Yeah, I think he should definitely sign it, but I know he won't. Just like us, who the voters, we sign a pledge, because to me, if Donald Trump is the candidate, I'm going to vote for him. If DeSantis is the candidate, I'm going to vote for him. If Tim Scott is the candidate, I'm going to vote for him. If BJ is the candidate, I'm going to vote for him. However, Donald Trump is not going to, because that's who Donald Trump is. Now, I voted for him in 2016, and I think he did a great job. I voted for him in 2020, and I think the elections were stolen from him. I'm not going to get into why, blah, blah, blah. But I really, really don't think he should have run this time around, because he's completely screwing us over. I think his chances of winning are zero. I think that there are no Democrat will ever vote for him, and I think that many Republicans will vote for him. So even against such a weak candidate as Biden, which is pretty much, dead for brains candidate that they have, he's still going to beat Trump. And that's, I just believe that's what
All right,
it is.
Radu,
So
listen.
I think he should sign it.
I get that, but it's also sort of a secondary question as to whether the party should have this loyalty pledge. And I do appreciate the call and you listening, Radu. The bigger question for today, not whether Trump can win or lose or not, that should be fought out on the debate stage. The question is, should the debate not include Trump if he doesn't sign this literally meaningless pledge? And why has Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel boxed herself into a corner like this? We'll continue with your calls, and we have more thoughts. And President Trump, by the way, made a pretty big announcement regarding next week, not about the debate, about something else. We'll tell you about that in a moment. Yeah, Donald, listen, it's funny. Radu said, Trump won't sign the pledge because that's who he is. Well, you know what? 8 years ago, he did sign the pledge. He did sign the pledge.
He did.
So it's not who he is, it's what he has learned, what we've all learned. I wanted every Republican to sign. I was naive enough to think that Jeb Bush and John Kasich and other Republicans who did not win the nomination in 2016 would be good Republicans and support the nominee, even if they didn't get it. But no, they don't like the guy who won, so they're sore losers, and they're going to try to undermine the Republican Party. And there were no repercussions, no penalties, no nothing. So why on earth should he? And also, why should he sign the pledge when he's polling at over 50 points right now? It's kind of insulting. So, Patrice, if he shows up on Wednesday, he doesn't sign the pledge. Ronna McDaniel, she's not going to let her on. That undermines the debate. If she does let him debate, then she acknowledges that the pledge is meaningless.
She's the one who's stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah,
but
she stuck herself there.
she stuck herself there. I mean, the pledge was meaningless. I think it was more of a control tactic on her part to try to prove that the RNC should be the only game in town, that any debates, whether it's on, cable news networks or social media platforms like Twitter, they're not the official NFL, so to speak. This is the game, and I think that's the game she played, and she fumbled the ball, to use a sports analogy. I'm tipping my hat there.
Howard in Manassas, you just get me excited for football season. Howard in Manassas, you're next up on O'Connor and Company. Good morning.
Good morning. In a brief nutshell, he should absolutely not sign it. I have much more faith in Donald Trump, even though I don't agree with everything, than I do in the Republican Party leaders. They have let us down time and time again. The pledge means nothing. I never just vote for anybody that's got an R beside their name. Never. I don't even call myself a Republican because there's many stinking Republicans out there that suck. I say that as nicely as possible.
Yeah,
so Trump should be Trump.
Noted.
And I disagree with your last caller. I do believe there are many Democrats, specifically many black men. I mean, not a lot, but there are more and more that will vote for Trump. And I'm not saying that I necessarily want Trump to be the candidate, but he needs to keep doing what he's doing. He has proven to be right much more than the leaders of the Republican Party.
Well, I'll tell you this, Howard, and I appreciate the call. You have a good weekend.
Thanks, Howard.
After how many indictments with how many charges? Over 100 charges now, I think, stacked up in New York, in Atlanta, and 2 different charges at the federal court. He is currently polling basically at a dead even with Joe Biden. After all of that negative press, after all of that media, the majority of the American people believe that the charges against him are politically motivated. And right now,
and with the power of the incumbency. I mean, Joe Biden is the sitting president.
Yes.
The seat of the incumbency offers a lot of advantages that should place him far ahead of Trump in the polls right now.
I'm not making the case that he's the best selection for the nomination process. I respect the voters' opinions on that, and I'll just stay back. And I'm Switzerland here. I want a Republican to beat Joe Biden. That's all I care about, and I don't need to sign a pledge to affirm that. Okay, listen, if it's Asa Hutchinson, I've got Asa fever. So we'll follow the process wherever it goes. But the fact that Chairwoman McDaniel has set up this horrible situation for herself, where she's damned if she does and she's damned if she doesn't, if Donald Trump shows up, she's undermined her own debate if she doesn't let him on the stage.
So the question is, what is the point of the pledge? Is it really just to ensure that the nominee is supported by all the other candidates, or is it really just about control over the debates and making sure that the RNC debates are the only ones that matter? Because the way she wrote the pledge, it's really just about controlling the debates, and then the other piece of, you should support whoever is secondary. So knock it out there, right? Take it out, and then President Trump would probably sign, right?
Good question. I'm not sure. We'd love to ask her. Now that she's not looking for support to be re-elected as chairwoman, she hasn't come on the program, but maybe she will. I know people at the RNC listen, so we'd love to talk with the chairwoman and have her explain this, and it would be a fine way to promote the debate, which, by the way, will be heard here live on WMAL.
Yes, that's right.
9 p.m. next Wednesday. You'll hear the entire debate right here on your favorite station, right after Mark Levin. I'll sum this whole thing up and how it's been carried out by paraphrasing Will Rogers. I don't belong to an organized political party. I'm a Republican. All right, President Trump did take to Truth Social yesterday to make 2 announcements. The first pertaining to the debates. He said, many people are asking whether or not I will be doing the debates. All Americans have been clamoring for a president of extremely high intelligence. As everyone is aware, my poll numbers over a wonderful field of Republican candidates are extraordinary. In fact, I'm leading the runner-up, whoever that may be, by more than 50 points. Reagan didn't do it, and neither did others. People know my record, one of the best ever. Why would I debate? I'm your man. Make America great again. The reference to Reagan has to do with Reagan running as an incumbent, by the way, not in the Republican primaries of 1980, but 1984, I believe, because he did debate in 1980. That said, Patrice, there you go. He says, why should I debate? You know my record. Take it or leave it.
I still like our idea. If President Trump or his folks are listening, just show up and stand there in the parking lot and just watch all the Trump supporters swarm around and just stand there. It would be iconic. It would be iconic.
He had another statement, maybe more significant. In fact, he had promised that Monday in Georgia he would release a report that he would call a large, complex, detailed, irrefutable report on presidential election fraud that took place in Georgia, and that he would be completely exonerated in that 11 a.m. news conference scheduled for Monday. Yesterday, he called off that news conference. He said that rather than releasing that report, my lawyers would prefer putting this irrefutable, overwhelming evidence of election fraud into legal filings now that he has been indicted. So, so there that is.
The lawyers are like, no, shh.
Yeah.
Just shh.
Hey, let's put that in a legal filing. Let's not do a news conference. Okay. Listen, we'll ask Newt Gingrich about all of that stuff, the debate stuff, the election fraud stuff, the indictments. Newt Gingrich will be joining us at 7:35. Right now, it's 6:30 in the nation's capital. Keep it here. It's O'Connor and Company on WMAL. Good Friday morning to you. It's O'Connor and Company here on WMAL, and we are loaded for bear and trying to use our real names, but once in a while our pseudonym might fall in there because, you know, it's a thing, especially when you're the Vice President of the United States. You got to use a fake name when engaging with foreign leaders. Otherwise, you know, people like Tom Fitton on
business deals.
Yeah, you know, Judicial Watch and all those pesky FOIA requests, the Oversight Committee. You don't want them sticking their nose in important business. Talking about the weather. It's 7:05. Jacqueline Woodbridge will join us from Transurban, partnered with VDOT to open those final 95 express lanes this week. 7:35, Newt Gingrich. At 8:05, Rob O'Donnell. And at 8:35, Byron York of The Examiner, who's all over this Joe Biden fake name story. I'm Larry O'Connor. That's my real name. Well, technically, my real name's Lawrence O'Connor, but who wants to do that? And that is Patrice Onwuka. That's your married name. Is your real name? Patrice Lee.
My pseudonym, I do go by Charisse Homestead. So
Charisse Homestead.
Charisse Homestead. You can use that as well.
I like that. Is that what Onwuka means?
No.
Oh.
We were playing a little game before before the show and figuring out what your stage name would be, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
it's your middle name and the street you grew up on.
Just hold on. Your middle name is Charisse. You're Patrice Charisse.
Patrice Charisse Gervine Lee. That was my maiden name.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
All right, we are going to get into the whole fake name story, but this story out of Louisiana really caught my eye, and not just mine. This absolutely went supernova viral starting yesterday afternoon when it first hit the interwebs. We talk about parents' involvement in our schools quite a bit here. And, of course, I hope you recognize that it goes well beyond just getting angry once a month at a school board meeting. We need to be involved at every level. Not only are these our schools that we pay for, but obviously these are our kids.
Yeah.
And we get upset about the curriculum. We get upset about transgender policies. We get upset about masking policies and stay-at-home policies and COVID and all of that stuff. But in Louisiana, in Shreveport specifically, the parents down there were faced with their kids maybe not even coming home from school because of violent outbreaks on a daily basis. And the school system was unable to handle it, so the parents had to take over. And I want you to listen.
Not many good news stories begin in such a bad news way. It happened last month here at Southwood High School in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Plagued with violence.
Over the course of 3 days,
Another fight.
23 students arrested for fighting.
Massive police response to
But strangely, there hasn't been another incident since. Perhaps in part because of this most unusual crisis intervention team.
Nobody here has a degree in school counseling. No majors in criminal justice.
No.
Your qualifications are?
Well, Dad, we decided the best people who can take care of our kids are who? For us. What we do.
So Michael Lafitte started Dads on Duty,
We're out doing what we do for our babies.
a group of about 40 Southwood dads who now hang out at the school in shifts.
Let's go.
Today, any negative energy that enters the building has to run a gauntlet of good parenting.
What's going on, buddy?
You moving fast. I like that horse.
I love this story so much, Patrice.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a couple of takeaways here. The first one, by the way, it's the visual that you can't get on the radio. These dads look like the hogs of the Washington Redskins classic era of the 80s. This is an offensive line you do not want to mess with.
No,
These
you
guys
don't. They'll
are-
drop you.
These are big men.
Yeah.
And they don't take any crap. And they decided, all right, our kids are getting into fights and the school system is engaged. You know, it took a month. and they say our school system doesn't do anything. It's time. Well, then we got to take control of our kids, and all they do is they're just there. They
Their
just
presence.
show up, and they take shifts, and amazingly, there are no more fights.
So it's so interesting. You know, the interviewer said, "Well, none of you has a criminal degree. None of you has a academic degree related to child care or child education.
No PhD in education.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I think this story underscores that you don't need those degrees necessarily when it comes to just being a parent and a presence. And the presence of particularly Black men, because a lot of these are Black dads. Black men in the lives, the presence of their presence in the lives of Black children is immense. You don't even have to have a Black dad in your household. If you grew up in a neighborhood, I've done some research where there are other Black fathers doing things like going to work every day, taking care of their family, being responsible. There are positive externalities to those kids who don't have a dad in their household. So just by seeing a Black man responsible, showing leadership in school every day, that can make up some of the deficit for a lot of these kids who probably don't have that kind of presence in their home.
You're
this
right,
is fantastic.
But if it's in a place like D.C. or New York or Chicago or Los Angeles, San Francisco, where the teachers union and the professional educators dominate, if parents, if Black dads showed up and said, "Hey, we want to just be," no, they'll be sent home because they don't have that. You're right. This is the best part.
Nobody here has a degree in school counseling. No majors in criminal justice.
No.
Your qualifications are?
We're dads.
We're dads. That's our qualification. We're dads. This is what we do.
But you know,
and by
Larry, we
yeah.
talk about this all the time. Society has diminished the role of dads, of fathers, so much, particularly in pop culture.
Yeah.
All dads on TV are oafs who do stupid stuff. That diminishes the power and the influence that dads actually really have.
You're right. And sadly, we've ceded that. We men, for our own purposes, out of laziness in some cases, out of apathy, but also, frankly, some men out of guilt. It's like, yeah, you're right. You're not toxic masculinity. You're right. We're the problem. They believe the hype that men have been the problem in our society all this time. So he said, okay, fine. Mothers are more important than no. We're both important, and we both have our roles. By the way, I want you to hear what the kids have to say in this report.
I immediately felt a form of safety.
We stopped fighting. People started going to class.
How could that be?
You ever heard of a look?
A look? Dads have the power to do that?
Yes. Not many people know it, but yes.
Let's go.
But it's not just the firm stares and stern warnings.
Let's make it to class, my son.
It's also the dad jokes.
They just make funny jokes like, oh, hey, your suit is untied, but it's really not untied.
They hate it. They're so embarrassed by it.
And it's that perfect mix of tough love and gentle ribbing that dads do so well.
Patrice, honestly, this brings tears to my eyes.
Wow.
And you compare these dads fixing this school and the problems compared to what we see from these teachers that show up on the libs of TikTok video reels who are trying to push, non-binary, transgender agendas on kids.
Yeah.
And so those teachers want to engage the kids in talking about who they sleep with at night instead of focusing on what's really important.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear from the DC school system if they would embrace or even start a program like this here in Washington. I would love to hear what their response is.
Well, there are associations of like Black men who go into schools, who mentor, who do after-school tutoring. I have friends who participate in it, but unfortunately, it doesn't get enough attention, and it's not always allowed. And I think for whatever reason, we seem to think that the role of Black men or dads in general, every race, that somehow they need to take a back seat to the women, and that's wrong.
That said, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, and I appreciate you sort of resetting and saying dads in general. But you know what? I think statistics show that specifically in the Black community and Black dads, dads have been told by our society and our culture over the course of the last 60 years that they are not necessary, they're irrelevant, they're the problem. And the number of children who are growing up in the Black community without a dad in the home is directly related to the issues that we're seeing in those neighborhoods. So there's nothing wrong in this case with saying this is an issue that specifically when Black dads are involved, when Black dads are engaged, it makes all the difference in the world. And if you are, by the way, if you're listening and you're a part of an organization that is engaged in this kind of thing, please reach out to us. We'd love to draw attention to it.
We'd love to promote it, yeah.
Meanwhile, what is happening in D.C. schools? Well, it's not Shreveport, Louisiana, that's for sure, and dads aren't fixing the problem. Recent survey of Washington Teachers Union says that 30% of D.C. teachers surveyed said that they had been assaulted by students.
My goodness.
55% of teachers and staff said they've witnessed students assault other students. 42% said the workplace violence has increased in schools in the past year. You know, you get what you vote for, Teachers Union. Teachers Union supports exactly the people who are making policy decisions that make it more dangerous on the job. Maybe they should rethink the political situation here in Washington.
Absolutely. So now, obviously, crime is spiking, not just in schools, but citywide. Total violent crime is up 37%, according to some reporting in Fox 5 DC. 37% from this time last year. Homicides up 25%. So we've got the Mayor Muriel Bowser, coming up with 3 new initiatives that are going into effect pretty much immediately. The first is this juvenile curfew. We've seen these before in D.C. from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. during the week and midnight to 6 a.m. in weekends. Anyone under the age of 17 years old found on the streets after that time will be brought to to the Department of Youth and Rehabilitation Services. So they're kicking kids off the street because obviously a lot of these teens are the ones who are conducting a lot of the crime.
Yeah, but if you don't have enough cops to enforce that, what's the point? And, well, listen, will it work? Do curfews work? Will that make a difference? We will ask a law enforcement professional. 8:05, former New York cop Rob O'Donnell will join us.